Thanks for joining us. Look for more episodes of All Right in Sin City wherever you listen to podcasts, or check out our website, allrightinsincity.com. For information and announcements of new podcasts, sign up to our email list or follow us on Facebook and Twitter.
Today's podcast features a live reading from the Explorer's Room in the Detroit Public Library main branch. It's an edition of Poets and Pies, a reading series sponsored by the Detroit Writers Guild and other literary organizations. It features a rare treat for fans of rock legend Frank Zappa, a Detroit reading from Los Angeles poet, memoirist, and musician Rubén Guevara. Also, it features Detroit essayist Lori Tucker Sullivan, Detroit poet Justin Rogers, and the Reverend Michael Jones, the dancing poet. The event was emceed by the Detroit Writers Guild president, internationally known poet M.L. Liebler. Now, here's M.L.
So we're going to hear from Lori Tucker Sullivan first, then we're going to hear from Rubén, and then we're going to hear from Justin Rogers, from the, I want to say Inside Out, but I see him more as a poets and writers kind of guy. And then Michael Jones will close us out with some poetry and dance. So you don't want to leave before that happens. So please welcome up to Poets and Pies. And poets, you can come up eating the pie if you want to. That's fine. It's acceptable here. Lori Tucker Sullivan!
ML, thank you for all of the things that you do for literary life in Detroit. As he mentioned, I am working on a manuscript, a book that will be released about a year from now, about the widows of rock stars that died young. I'm going to read you a chapter from that book. The book is I Can't Remember If I Cried, Rock Widows on Life, Love, and Legacy. And that title comes from the song American Pie. There's a line, I can't remember if I cried when I read about his widowed bride, which was about Maria Elena Holly, the widow of Buddy Holly. The song is about the day that Buddy Holly died and the day the music died. In 2010, my husband Kevin passed away after a 3-year battle with cancer, and I found myself looking for a group of young widows that I could relate to, and it was difficult to find this group. And I was also finishing my MFA in writing, and I was headed to Louisville where I was studying, and there was a story that came on the radio about Yoko Ono, and I thought, wow, I have this whole new level of respect for Yoko. I don't hate her anymore. She's done so many wonderful things. Since she lost her husband, she's continued her music, and she's raised a son, and she's honored John's legacy. And so there must be other women like that out there. In this area, there are so many women who lost their husbands young in the area of music and rock and roll. And so I started tracking them down and finding them and interviewing them, and it became my project. They became my grief group. And just a little over 6 or 7 months ago, I received a contract, and it is going to now be a book, and it will come out early next year. So I'm going to read you tonight the chapter about Gloria Jones. She was a Motown backup singer, songwriter, and she was also the lover of Mark Bolan from the band T-Rex, and this is about our day in Hollywood. Gloria Jones sits in the Rainbow Room, the famed Hollywood location of 70s rock excess. With her hair cropped short and dyed yellow blonde, she's comfortable in pants and a t-shirt, a far cry from her days as a backup singer and partner of Mark Bolan, leader of the group T-Rex. This was the place in the 70s, she says, her rough voice unexpected of a former Motown backup singer. We used to hang out here with Harry Nilsson, Danny Hutton from Three Dog Night. I remember nights with David Bowie and John Lennon. It was amazing. I'm talking 73, 74, such wild days. Gloria pauses and looks around. I haven't been here in a long time. It was easier for tax reasons not to stay in one place too long. We had a place in Monaco, a house in London, and a home here in Hollywood. We would drive up here in Mark's gold Cadillac. 1970s Gloria was very differently adorned. She wore satin pantsuits and platform shoes, huge afros, feather boas draped her shoulders. Never outdone by her glam rock boyfriend Bolin, the two were often together in full black eyeliner glitter regalia. Though still stunning, Gloria bears the scars of time and trauma. The auto accident that killed Bolin in September of '77, the one in which Jones was driving, also broke her jaw and altered her voice. And though their tax exiles travels were exciting, they came with a high cost. Before meeting Bolin, Jones was a successful singer, songwriter, and producer. In 1964, Jones charted with the original version of Tainted Love. Yes, that Tainted Love. The huge 80s hit for Soft Cell was actually a cover of Gloria's original. She wrote hits for the Jackson 5, the Commodores, and Gladys Knight. Simultaneously, Bolin's career was exploding in the UK. He scored 13 #1 singles, including Get It On, Bang Gone. The success of that song brought him to the US. The success in the UK with Get It On opened the door for him to come to America, says Gloria. He toured the country with ZZ Top. He had one gig in Long Beach that would have broken things open for him here, but he got laryngitis and couldn't go on. Can you imagine when they told those people that T-Rex wouldn't be performing? Gloria lifts her hands in the air. This is fate, she says. This is life. How do you make all those pieces fit? You're so close to having everything, and just like that, she snaps her fingers. Fate and destiny are notions she returns to often. Mark understood destiny. He understood. His mother bought him his first guitar when he was 9. He would watch Cliff Richard and the music stars. He knew he wanted to be a star, she says, not just a performer, a star. Gloria credits the same destiny for bringing them together. Their paths crossed multiple times before they started a relationship. I was performing at the Aquarius Theater on Sunset in Hair, she says. I was invited to Mercy's house for a party. Mercy was one of Frank Zappa's GTO girls. She said that I had to come over and meet Mark Bolin of T-Rex. I had no idea what she was talking about. I didn't party, but that night I decided to go. A classically trained pianist, Jones was at the piano when Bolin arrived, wearing platform shoes, satin pants, and flowing sleeves. He walked into that room and lifted his arms, making those sleeves look like wings. He saw me sitting at the piano, and he gave me a look as if to say, well, you might as well get up, because the star has now arrived. Whatever you think you're doing, it's not happening. That was our instant connection. She tells me, then in the summer of '72, I toured with Joe Cocker. We performed at the Crystal Palace Bowl. After the show, Joe took us all to the Speakeasy. Mark was there with Elton John, and he said to Joe, you'd better be careful with those girls. Joe said, who, these? These are my backup singers. Mark looked at us and said, I'd still make sure they don't rob you. He looked at me and he smiled. I'll never forget that face. 2 weeks later, I got the call from Mark's manager. He wanted to have a meeting. The minute I walked in, when Mark saw me, he was so happy. He knew me from the popularity of Tainted Love, and of course we had had our chance encounters. Jones sang backup for T-Rex at a time when Bolin was a full-fledged teen idol, and the two soon became lovers. A lot of people don't understand it, she said, because once again, this is what happens with life. We cannot control our fate or destiny. We cannot change it, we cannot stop. We have to understand these experiences. You can never tell me that I was not going to be with that man. The two were young and creative when boundaries were being pushed around appearance and sexuality. Watch any T-Rex video and Bolin is flaunting long curly hair, coal-lined eyes, and his pouty lips. But he had also succumbed to some excess, gaining weight, drinking. Gloria is often credited with refocusing him on music and introducing him to her Motown sound. They were also an interracial couple, a fact that Jones' feel never fazed them. We never thought about it, she says emphatically. Looking back, I know it wasn't accepted at the time, but we really never thought about it. We were in Atlanta one time, walking through the airport. Mark had on backless high heels. He had on glitter and he had a boa. I had all the big hair. Someone pointed to us and said, look there, look at those freaks. They probably thought we were two women, but we just laughed it off. While visiting their California home at Christmas time in '74, Gloria became pregnant. Mark came from the world of rock and roll and fantasy, but he said in an interview that the one thing that brought him the most joy was having our child. With Roland, he was able to go outside of himself. Once Bolin's career stalled, he was contracted to host a televised afternoon music program called Mark, a platform that he actually used to introduce punk music to UK audiences. After recording the season's final episode with his friend David Bowie, Bolin and Jones went out to dinner. Bolin never learned to drive because he thought he would kill himself in a car. That evening, his Rolls Royce had been loaned out to a friend, so Jones drove in their Mini. Several friends joined them over the course of the evening to celebrate the last show. As they drove home, with Jones' brother Richard in the car behind them, the Mini struck a fence and hit a tree. Bolin was killed instantly, his body found pushed to the back of the vehicle. Jones lay unconscious across the hood with broken bones and lacerations. She awoke from a three-day coma to the news of Bolin's death. I woke up days later and Mark's manager, Tony Howard, came to me. He said, "I have very bad news. Mark is gone." The funeral had already taken place earlier that day, attended by hundreds of fans. Jones remained in the hospital for several days with her brother Richard at her side. My brother was with me and he didn't allow mirrors in the room, so I didn't know how badly I looked. I waited one night until everyone left and I went into the bathroom. I saw my face. My head was the size of a basketball. I was cut, I had stitches all over. I looked in that mirror and I said, "Who is that?" I made it back to my bed crying and a nurse came in and took my hand. She said, "You can make it," but I just didn't know how I ever would.
Lori Tucker Sullivan!
And connected to this, Mark Bolin is now being inducted into the Rock Hall of Fame after a lot of hard work on Gloria's part. So,
And I know I went too quickly through some of the the information. Lori's a Detroit-based, you better get out to Hollywood. Detroit-based writer, poems, essays, and stories, but she has an MFA from Spalding University, which specializes in creative nonfiction, and that's definitely worth noting. She's been nominated for Pushcart and notable essay for 2015, which is pretty good, in the American Essays book, 2016. And she has this new book that she signed a contract with BMG, a record book company, and comes out at this time next year?
This time next year.
Okay, so January, and it sounds fantastic. Thank you for that. So I want to introduce, I kind of switched things up just a bit, but I'm going to have Justin Rogers, who I'm very happy. I've seen him before, I've seen him work before, and he's fantastic. Justin is a Black poet, educator, coach, and editor for from Detroit, Michigan. Rogers shares poems surrounding living and praying, I like that, as a Black man in America, and explores fantasy through pop culture. Recently published in Tinderbox Poetry Journal, Grandma Press, is the author of a microzine, Nostalgia as Black Matilda, and also and Matilda from the Glass Poetry Center Press recently. He's coordinator of Inside Out, and as I mentioned, he's the outreach director for which we are very grateful, and if you need to touch base at some point, Justin is the guy. Please welcome Justin Rogers!
How y'all doing this evening, folks? Feeling good?
Yeah.
This is my 4-year-old who just followed me up here. Say hi, Eli. Say hi. Eli, go back there with Micah, the computer back there. I had to bring my little ones today because the power was off on the block when I got home earlier today. I'm like, oh, it's cold here, so I got to bring these little ones. But they get pie, so you can't go wrong with that. My wife offered to hold on to them and cancel her nail appointment. I said, no. You have your nail appointment. It's far more important. So I'm dusting myself a pat on the back right quick. But my name is Justin Rogers. I work with Inside Out Literary Arts, which is a nonprofit in the city of Detroit. We have two very specific things that we do. We have an in-school program where we put teachers into creative writing classrooms, English classrooms, and other spaces where youth would write, and they have a chance to develop an anthology at the end of the year. So all the students that we work with in that school have a chance to get published. After school is what I coordinate, is called Citywide Poets. We have multiple sites throughout the city where youth come together to work in small groups with a well-renowned local artist. Actually, they would have been here today when you arrived, but, and they'll actually have a bone to pick with you. You stole my space, and I think you actually steal it every now and again. And that's okay, we love you. But, so Wednesdays at the main library have teens, they come and they work one-on-one with an artist. And this happens throughout the course of the entire school year.
Usually we're Tuesdays.
And at the end of the year, we have a poetry slam. We also have a festival called Louder Than a Bomb that takes place at Wayne State University. So there are a number of things that I do inside Out Literary Arts. And as he was mentioning, I am also the Literary Outreach Coordinator for Poets and Writers, which means I help events like this get funded specifically in the city of Detroit. So I just wanted to give it a that. I'll talk a little more about poets and writers because that's partially my job, but after I read a couple poems, I think I'll hop straight into one about the little man since he ran up here after me. This is called Eli Faces His Face. My son, Eli, is 4. Everybody says his side eyes write novels in one glance. My face is the stencil book that Eli sketches his feelings from. I'm 28 and I know better, but my face still doesn't know how to keep the eyebrow low, the mouth shut, how to hold a smile like a lie either. My face is a bad blueprint, a misleading map spilling what's wrong with you over every conversation my cheekbones visit. I feel like a 4-year-old, like he's so cute until you ask him to do something, until he wants to change the subject, and then I become fake. What's wrong with him? Why he do his face like that? At 28, Eli will begin to feel how one end of his mouth becomes a fisherman's hook, piercing every word it doesn't agree with. His smile's an inherited delusion where every conversation is bait. His jaw a question mark, his face rogue, untrustworthy, never saying what's on his mind, so shady, he must not check the mirror, no home training. What will his children do with faces so quick to reveal the tongue before it is ready to slice? So I try to dive into pop culture here and there. Who likes Harry Potter? It's lit. Who knows who the Half-Blood Prince is? Sweet. So for those of y'all who don't know, Harry Potter is that magical book that they tried to ban for some reason a long time ago, and they have a bunch of movies and so on and so forth. Go Google it if you don't know. If you do know, the Half-Blood Prince is Severus Snape. If you don't know who that is, I don't know how to help you. So there might be context here, but I think you can get it even if you have no idea what I'm talking about. The Half-Blood Prince tells Justin that he is not a wizard. It is so silly to believe you are a wizard. You are so limited, so predictable. You think you have all this magic, but you don't see the death or the ghosts I've seen. You look for dead friends. You find pictures instead. You try time travel and wake up 4 a.m. unable to summon a sun. Your mattress is a plateau of failed charms. Your fingers burned from blunt buds, not blue sparks or brewing potion. The only magic you've ever spit is a curse from the mouth. A word you fear friends will find deadly. A prayer turned plague. You don't have the discipline to bewitch the mind. What makes you believe you know this power when you can't even identify yourself? This is from my chapbook called Black Matilda. Who knows who Matilda is? The little girl who moves stuff with her mind in that one movie, and the dad is the bad car dealer. Google it if you don't know. I was like, yo, but what if Matilda wasn't white like in all these other movies? What if Matilda was a little black girl, but person just in general? So I wanted to be able to have that approach and see like what is this overlap with magic and youth and this little person who can move stuff with their minds and likes books and so on and so forth. This poem in particular does not touch on Matilda, but it's very near and dear to my heart and a center to this particular chapbook. This is, don't you know worrying will make you unstable? 1. Don't you know worrying? Yeah, worrying is my homie from round the block. One time we smoked till my whole body shook, till I didn't know his name anymore and began to mistake worrying from my mirror. Since then, I've given worrying all my best clothes, split every meal and watched worrying's half rot in the sink. Worrying cigarette butts litter my bedroom. I smell worrying in my sleep, see worrying scattered across my pillows, taste it burned into my lips. 2, a prayer for anxiety. I leave bits of trash from visitors everywhere in my house. I pick around them like parents afraid to disturb their sleeping children. I like being reminded that my friends are only human. My friend says that she had a gun to her head last week. She was my last visitor. Left a half-empty Pepsi and a plate of ashes in the backyard the week before that. Adds a new cigarette butt and a Pepsi to the collection while she talks about her brains not on the floor. I feel like I'll discard a memory like this too soon. That I'll be left cleaning brains with nothing to soak up the blood. And this is not worrying, it is being selfish. And I don't want to be selfish with memories of my friends. Amen. 3, how worrying will make you doubt anything. Worrying locked himself in my house, lived inside the walls until they began to rot, and I stopped trusting the walls. The rot began to crawl across the floor, and I stopped trusting growth. God asks about faith, about valleys of shadows that I shouldn't fear, but the evil looks like me, and I haven't learned how not to fear myself yet. My body begs to sleep more. Sleep locks me in a house where the walls are rotting and asking me who I trust, so I stopped trusting myself. 4, such a person is double-minded and unstable in all they do. James 1:8. I am only hungry for the offerings that worrying has left in my sink, for the things I can't control, like my memories, like my double mind. I pray everything from God but my mind. I never ask, just hold worrying like a commandment. This is not instability. It's knowing worrying like a childhood friend, like a memory that I can't live without. All right, I think I have about 3 more poems. Again, I work with poets and writers. If you're unfamiliar with Poets and Writers, it is a nonprofit organization that's stationed in New York. They originally were based in New York and began funding artists in that area just for literary events just like this, workshops, so on and so forth. They also have a well-renowned magazine and a very, very strong website where you can look up other artists, where you can register yourself as an artist. They have this online notebook where you can literally keep up with everything you're doing as an artist, different ways that you can look up different contests, submission opportunities. So it's a very, very good resource. If you're technological, look up pw.org. If you're not so technological, talk to me and I can help you find pw.org. That is the best way to find out information about us. So also, if you are a curator of events, please talk to me. I'd love to find a way to get you funding for the artists that you are trying to bring in. All right, so a couple more poems. This uses a poetic form called a contrapuntal. Does anybody know what a contrapuntal is? My homie in the back. What's up, y'all? All right, so for those of you who don't know, a contrapuntal is a poem that has 2 columns. You can read it like this, you can read it like this, you can read it like this, in all sorts of weird different ways. I wrote one, I think. Who knows who Lil Wayne is? Better, cool. If you know who Lil Wayne is, this all makes sense. If not, hopefully it still does. Phone home, Lil Wayne. We are not the same. I am a burst sun, a galaxy made of my own brain matter. My skull, pulverized stardust. My mind is moving in silence, becoming a Martian. My body is a planet, which is to say my mind is revolving, always linked to some burning. My body, light at the end of digging a black hole into itself. We are the same, filled to the brim with home, a burst sun, our own brain matter. Pulverized stardust moving in silence. My body is a planet revolving, always burning. My body digging a black hole into the same home, a galaxy made of my sun. My mind is becoming a Martian, which is to say my mind is linked to some light at the end of itself, and we are all filled to the brim with home. Cool. I'm going to end on these two last lighthearted poems. Thank you again for having me. And it's great to be here. And the pie was dope. Who listens to gospel music? Who listens to like rap? Who sometimes listening to one and you kind of like over in between? That's what I do. Sometimes we're real holy, but sometimes I need the baby, and like the baby can be holy too. So this is titled Turn Gospel. Sometimes the gospel is turned. The choir, a synchronized dab, in the church bows its heads over and over on beat like the war is over or just beginning. It's something about that bass line behind an open bottle of hallelujah that reminds all the saints that the devil is offbeat, and stay grimy with it. How the war is never over when the saints still think Jesus was offbeat too, like he didn't prophesize Kendrick Lamar and give him to the hood as gospel. Like these ebonics not sacred, a scripture, how we stay saved. Sometimes the turnt is gospel. The twerk, a ghost that can't be shook. The block party, a grill filled with communion. What blood have we shed to eat ribs whole? How much wine is soaked up by our graves? When the beat drops, so do our burdens, and the code switches back to black. And some people think it don't take all that. Think that we need to behave ourselves like God didn't gift us survival instincts. Like these hands can't knuck and pray. The turnt is testimony. The blessing is how God fills our cups to the brim, and we drink and lift every voice in chorus.
Yeah!
All right, this is my last poem titled Naming Me. My mother mentioned wanting to name me something that sounded like my father, but not a junior. Justin is the sound of my father sifted onto a birth certificate that he dies before he gets a chance to sign. Gino has become so powder I barely remember that he was once a whole man. How I look just like him is a conversation about a phantom that precedes me but who haunts my house anyways. There is no memory to rebuild him of, no picture of him begging my mind to mold a false memory, no voice I've known to echo its sons. I know nothing of a father, of a Gino, of mourning. I don't know how to grieve something I never gained but was made to sound like. My mother mentions wanting to name me something that sounds like Gino, or maybe my mother doesn't know how to grieve either, and Justin was the closest that she could get.
Justin Liebler! Now you got some of those books with you in case people are lining up?
Folks should check it out at glasspoetrypress.com. I do not have any more copies on me. Folks have bought me out. So Glass Poetry Press.
That's a good thing. I'm going to call the Reverend Michael C. Jones up. He's going to read you a poem, and then he's got to get to his next gig, and then I'm going to bring Rubén up to thrill you. Rubén does have a few books left. Please welcome Detroit's dancing poet, but not dancing yet, the Reverend Michael C. Jones from the Detroit Writers Guild.
Thank you. It's always a joy to see all you wonderful people and all these beautiful faces. Well, this is my latest book. It's a year old last month. And even though it's spiritually endowed, it's got other stuff in there. But I don't know if you could all see it, but I'm going to let you know what's going on with this title. It stands for Jesus died 2,000 years ago at the age of 33. He left a servant. He's coming back a king. And God's word is consuming fire. So when you finish the book, 183 pages of poetry about the birth, the life, the death, the burial, the resurrection, the ascension, and the second coming. When you finish it, there's a lion and a lamb and piece together. Okay, so I'll read you a few pieces out of I know old time we used to stick stickers in here, but I didn't stick any in here today, so bear with me.
I'm going to put some light on it, too.
Thank you. You know, when you get A lot of people, when you get in the 70s, you need light. I'll put it like that. Okay, Emil, I might need a little help there.
There's some.
Can you hear me okay, everybody?
Yeah.
All right. I'll work with it anyway. What happened? Whatever happened to government by the people, government for the people, and government of the people, so help us God. Now it's government by the government, for the government, and of the government, so help us all. We didn't want a war, but now we are in one. We tried to police the world, and our borders are breached. Health care and insurance beyond the average person's reach. Pharmaceutical companies should be impeached. And drugs run rapid on most city streets. Crude oil and gas prices out of control. It takes 2 or 3 jobs to survive, pay bills, each household. The cost of living is so high it's not living. And the rich still feed off the poor. Sucking our blood like a leech. What happened to freedom from want, freedom from fear, freedom of expression, and freedom of religion? Tell me, people, whatever happened to America? This next one is entitled Aretha, the Queen of Soul. A glimpse of heaven from the divine. We were given Aretha Franklin forever in time. She loved her family immensely. Aretha showed love, taught respect, believed in unity. People in Detroit was her community. She loved people, from her wealth gave generously, lifted up the poor and needy, helped them break free from division, hate, strife, especially poverty. Her song, I'll never love a man the way I love you. How we all should love, stay loyal, strong, be true. She sung for the Pope, a Pavarotti stand-in. She brought the house down, sung opera for her sick friend. Sung at M.L. King's funeral, taught advocacy, rebirth. The angels bowed, came to earth. Had no choice, wanted to be closer to her voice. Aretha gave God his glory and told his story. The love is everlasting choice. Youngest person awarded the Medal of Freedom. First female inducted in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Her song, Respect, took her beyond stardom. World, I'm talking about a black lady, Aretha Franklin's her name. She sung at 3 presidents' inaugurals. Our sister, blessed beyond all expectations, taught humility to the world, including our nation. Aretha's riding through the clouds, in heaven, riding her pink Cadillac singing, Amazing Grace, Lord, teach your people love and respect. I'm with Christ my Savior, in peace, my soul at rest. I got 2 more, but this one here I have to tell you a little about it.
Get the microphone, Mike.
Okay. Get the microphone, Michael, huh? All right, thank you. This particular poem was inspired by Barack Obama. I don't know if you remember, I think it was Sandy Hook when those people got killed and he came and made a speech and Gabby Gifford got shot in the head, but she recovered. I think I got the right school, but anyway, it was inspired through all those school shootings. And it's entitled, What Will You Bring to the Table This Year? What will you bring to the table this year? Joy, laughter, a smile, a tear, a pity party, or degradation, hope, promise, exaltation? Bring many smiles and cheers. We can't undo yesteryear, but we can bring to the table a willing heart, ready and able, a mind awakened from the dead, lightened by what the word of God said. willing to fly to worlds unknown, landing gracefully around the throne. Love your nation, family, sister, and brother. Pray for your enemy. Love one another. Believe in all the good that you can do. The angels will help to see you through. Spend more time communing with God. We are the saints, the past we tried. Do right even when it feels wrong. It is the right that makes the heart strong. Don't hide the beautiful you that's in you. Be confident in all the things that you do. Remember, brothers, sisters, kings, and queens, you are the new birth, sealed and redeemed. Just a little quickie. This is my last one. And it's A Colorblind World. I cannot wait to live in a colorblind world when all nations stand together, rainbows of flags unfurl, peace run rapid, hearts flutter, loving each other as sisters and brothers. Justice flows like a river whirl around. We dance at sunrise, joy abounds. The world's people on one accord worship, praise, and thanks to the Lord. Promise of today is glory to be, marvelous future too bright to see. In this colorblind world, you don't need glasses to see. Your heart is your eye's sight, and love's the only key. Thank you.
All right.
And I do have a few books.
Michael C. Jones. All right, I'm going to introduce Rubén Guevara to you. Rubén is his new book, which is available back there, and you should get it and get it signed while he's in town, because the last time he was in Detroit, he played at the Masonic Temple in 1973, so you might have seen him there. He started out as a singer, an actor. He's from East LA. He wrote this new book that's really great. Covers his whole life, and which includes hooking up with Frank Zappa, being produced by Frank Zappa, touring with Frank Zappa, and then also hooking up with Cheech Marion and being a part of several of the Cheech and Chong movies, music-wise and otherwise. He's done some acting. He's done a number of different things related to the arts. His mother was an actress back in the day. And he's a wonderful person. He's an activist. And I met him out in Los Angeles. We did a gig together, and we're going to do more of those as we get out there. Please welcome Rubén Guevara!
That's good.
All right.
That's good. Thank you, Mr. Professor Liebler over here. Did a couple of his classes today, and it was a trip. Great students, man. Really good students. Good questions. Attentive. It was inspiring. You know what's good about doing talks with students is that you get to hear what the new generation's up to, you know? And the kids are all right, man. You know, we're going to be all right. Don't worry about it. Yeah, they're very, very caring, very, very human. Yeah, as Professor, ML, I guess you know him as ML Liebler, said, my background is pretty varied. I grew up in East LA, born and raised in Los Angeles. And I just did this book, my first autobiography, and it took me about, 100 years to write it. But it's out, and I'm proud, and I'm on a tour with it, and if you get a chance to look at it, I'm going to read from it, and a couple of sections, and I'll get to Zappa in a minute. This is the prologue. I came into this world on fire. My tío Javier thought I looked too pale when I came home from the hospital, so he put me out in the sun to get some color. He never came back. I suffered second-degree burns on my newborn face, arms, and hands. I was tightly wrapped in sheets so I wouldn't scratch myself. I was taken to several doctors, but they couldn't heal the burns. I'm sure I flipped out a little. I cried nonstop. I was only 5 days old. Finally, my dear great aunt Tia Victoria cured me by giving me a Mexican potion of goat's milk and indigenous herbs. And miraculously, I recovered. Well, that's the way my life started out. And that's pretty much the way it's been. A steady series of burnings and a steady series of miracles that kept saving my mind, my face, and my life. My life. A long, absurd, hilarious, surreal serenade of being pushed to the edge of my singed psyche. But through leaps of good faith and good karma, I've managed to dive off that cliff into the forging heat and pulse of the heartbeat, the crucible of the soul, and live to tell about it. I'm past 70 now. I might only have a couple of $100 in the bank. Might not know when the next gig would come along, but to pay the rent. But my life was never about playing it safe in the cool shade anyway, or about becoming rich and famous. It's been about making music and making love, rocking and rolling with the punches, and letting life keep the beat. Thank you. Yeah, I met Frank Zappa. I went to a concert of his in 1968 when he released an album called Cruisin' with Rubén and the Jets. I went to the concert because he was this radical, crazy hippie guy, recorded an album of doo-wop music during the middle of acid rock, psychedelia. And I'm a kid of doo-wop. I grew up with it, sang it. And a piano player from his band was in town, an old friend of mine, just got back off tour with him. Anyway, my friend Bob Harris, the keyboard player for Frank, said, "Hey man, I'm gonna go up to his house and I gotta settle some business. Do you wanna go?" "Sure man, let's go." Right on. Went up there, Frank answered the door, says, "Hey, Rubén, you never dropped off those demos." "That's cool, man, come on in. So we came in, he pulled out his record collection, man. 78s, 45s, I mean, he goes back, he had the best collection of R&B doo-wop of anybody I've ever seen, better than my collection. So we're talking about doo-wop and the record, the record business and how it's going this way. He took a chance with a rock and roll doo-wop record with the Mothers of Invention. And then we started talking about classical music. And that's what I was studying at the time in school. The modern guys, like Stravinsky, Bartok. I like the avant-garde crazy shit. And so did he. We're talking about doo-wop of the 40s and 50s, and then modern classical composers. So we had a spectrum going on, and I think it created a sense of unity, I guess solidarity. So the sun's coming up, and he said, "How would you like to stage a real Rubén and the Jets?" I thought about it a minute as a friend, man, rock and roll, dangerous, too many detours. Took a long look at me and said, "Build your own roads." I thought about it, and plus, I'll produce your first album and you can go on tour promoting it with us. I said, "Well, man, thank you, let me think about it." I thought about it and said, well, this is too good of an opportunity to pass. I could deal with a little bit of rock and roll madness one more time, let's see what happens. Put a band together, he liked it, he signed us, produced our first album, went on the road. Anyway, the band went crazy, like all rock and roll bands do. We tore up hotels, we got banned for every Holiday Inn across the country. Came back, the manager was pissed off, fired the band, and I was supposed to start up a new band. I didn't feel like it, I was burned out. Anyway, this little section here from the book I'll read, my last recollections of Frank before he passed away. The last time I saw Frank was on a panel discussing rock music in Santa Monica, organized by Lee Ballinger, co-editor of Rock and Roll Confidential. My talk was on the influence of Afro-Latin music on U.S. pop culture. I think Frank talked about censorship. A few years later, I ran into Gail Zappa at the Club Lingerie, where their sons Dweezil and Amit were debuting with their new band called Zappa. She told me that Frank was very sick, that I should go visit him. Regrettably, I wasn't able to, and he passed away shortly thereafter. I wrote an obituary in Rock and Roll Confidential praising his courage, genius, sense of humor, and his unswerving love and devotion to his kids. I am grateful for him offering me the opportunity to work with him and for allowing me to experiment with my crazy ideas. I didn't exactly create or recreate, I didn't exactly succeed at recreating my rock theater idea, but instead the Jets, Frank and I created 2 damn good albums. We rocked the hell out of many shows, getting encores where new opening bands never did. Not bad for a band only 2 years old. And yeah, goddammit, it was glorious rock and roll after all. At least it was in my mind. May you rest in peace, Frank. Bill Wilde, Clarence Matsui, Jim Motorhead Sherwood, and Tony Duran. I'll always love you, crazy brothers. Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. I'm going to close with the last chapter of the book. So here it goes. Fonte's doomed heroine, Camila Lopez, was the indigenous soul of LA. I don't think he knew that. She was the desert, the sun, the sea, the mountains, the nopales, the wildflowers, the wildfires. Beauty Bandini could never understand or have, but only desire. He, like so many immigrants from the Midwest and East, came to a place that promised fine, fast women, sunshine wrapped in skin-tight gold lame. They didn't expect the dust, the dirt, the shit, the piss, the vomit, the stepped-on shattered dreams on shiny black quicksand sidewalks. And with all due respect, Mr. Fonte, it wasn't marijuana that killed Camilla. It was the color of her skin, a constant reminder that she was Mexican in the town and country that despised her. This was her ancestral land, yet her soul was dishonored serving cheap beer with forced smiles to insatiable transient losers. It was the oppression of dreams and hope that killed her, like it almost killed me. Yeah, I know you, LA, and I know you know me. You are the birth and the death of my dreams, and the fears and doubts and guilt that almost killed me too. So the next time I crash and burn, take me in your arms and wrap me in satin wings of fallen angels, broken promises, unanswered prayers, songs never heard, and the tortured hearts of poets, pimps, priests, and prostitutes. Let's jump on Angel's Flight and soar high above City Hall's pyramid crown, where you breathe with the moon seducing the sunset, where hawks and spirits fly through lightning, where gods and goddesses make love, where angels dance the Pachuco hop with demons and dogs, where broken hearts search for the soul of your music. Then hold me tight, LA. Tighter. Now take me higher. Take me where the Big Bang banged, where stars sing falsetto light, where stardust turns into DNA, where the galaxies dance slow and tight, where love seduces miracles. Then grab a piece of the sun's bleeding heart and sculpt me into a lusty funk of fire, rhythm, and blues. And let my perfect tears and songs of dust caress and cover our sinful sacred streets. Then watch me burn, Milena de los Angeles, my queen of the angels. And as you stoke the fires of hope and despair, I would kiss the flames of acceptance, redemption, salvation, as I recreate myself in the fiery crucible of your soul to rise again and again again. Watch me burn, Milena. Watch me burn. Stoke the fire. Kiss the flames. Thank you.
Rubén Guevara from East LA.
Thanks for joining us. Look for more episodes of All Right in Sin City wherever you listen to podcasts, or check out our website, allrightinsincity.com. For information and announcements of new podcasts, sign up to our email list or follow us on Facebook and Twitter.